Hey everyone, Tony Walsh here from Walsh Farms. Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another SHEDWARS21 video. So you can see behind me are Greenstalk containers. Let's turn around and talk about those for a moment. Okay, so I'm turned around and you see some hardy stuff ready to be harvested in there, and got some that's almost ready. And yes, these tomatoes need water, and that's going to be my tip today that I want to talk about, is watering. But not necessarily in this Greenstalk, even though it does. But just an update of where we're at. You can see these tomatoes here. Got a couple that's almost ready. And one sitting back there that is really almost ready, needs to be done. And obviously we got some cherry tomatoes that are ready to be picked. We have already started picking some, and I'll show that on my wait list later. A little pepper down there we haven't picked yet. And Jackie has been eating off this lettuce. Well, we've both been eating off this lettuce, and you can see we've clipped that one there. It's not a head lettuce, it's a loose leaf lettuce. So we've been harvesting that. And let me walk around to this other side, and you can see banana peppers that are ready. We have already been eating those. And that's about it on that one. We have been eating lettuce off of this. And of course we have started eating strawberries off of this one. So that's the three Greenstalks, the three containers that we are growing in. So let's move to the raised flower beds. So another container we're growing in is we have peppers in this one, and got different kinds of peppers. Jalapenos and something back there on the back side. It's a bell pepper on the back side. Have those there. This was the box that my beets were in, and we have finally eat all the beets, and the harvest was nothing like I thought it would. So I don't know if the transplanting didn't work, or if they were just, one of my sneaky feelings is they were just too crowded. Even though I like the square foot gardening method, and we went by the book, and I think we overcrowded them. So, but I'm definitely going to try beets again next year because I love beets. Still here we have lettuce and celery. And yes, we have a lot of lettuce because we eat a lot of lettuce. In this one we have cucumbers growing up the hog panel trellis there that we've done. More lettuce, spinach, onions, cilantro, and eggplants, and another bell pepper there. And this is going to be my discussion today. My tip sort of is watering between a raised bed and a real garden spot. So we'll come back to watering these in just a moment. So here you can see this box is, again, square foot gardening method, but it is way too thick, and it scares me to death that we're messing up our harvest. So don't be afraid to try anything once, but make notes and pay attention to what you're doing, to where you can adjust for the next year and ask questions before the next year gets here. And I'm going to ask some questions of y'all in just a moment. But obviously we have squash here, we have basil here, we've got some peppers, and what I'm talking about that I'm scared of harvest, you see how small that pepper is in there? Because it is well being overshadowed by the tomatoes on one side and the squash and zucchini on the other side. So the tomatoes are thick, and they're starting to grow tomatoes. Just have to find a couple. Trust me, they have tomatoes on them. And then we have cucumbers growing up this trellis here. So again, there's one plant in every square foot, but you can see they are crowded. And you can see pickles right here starting to grow, so, or cucumbers, but these are national pickling cucumbers, so we will pickle these. But again, here's the tomatoes. But look at this zucchini plant. Look at the size of the leaves on that. They're as big as doggone elephant ear, baby elephant ears. But the zucchinis are looking great. I don't know if you can see that because I'm in the sun, but there are zucchini galore growing on this plant. And I don't know, I do not remember what type of zucchini plant this is, but it is way overshadowed. So my question is, would it hurt to cut off some of these leaves. They're protecting the zucchini from the blistering sun, because you saw them tomatoes wilting. We water them tomatoes twice a day just because the sun is out here is brutal. So that's my question. Would it hurt to cut back some of these leaves, or does the zucchini need the shade? Would it hurt it to be in the sun more? In the same way with this squash plant, or all these squash plants, look how big they have gotten. And this one here, you know, is growing several squash on it. That one in there, you know, several squash on it. So for these, we're getting the numbers, but I'm not sure we're going to get the size that we would like to eat, or in the case of SHEDWARS, get the poundage, because I'm just afraid things got too overcrowded, even though we went 1 plant per square foot. So this is where I need advice. What do I do about the size of these leaves and trimming any back to allow some sunlight to the squash and the zucchini itself? So that's where I need your help. But I mentioned my tip today, or my discussion today, is about watering and the difference between watering in a raised bed in the traditional garden spot. Just a couple of more updates though before I get to watering. I keep thinking about this. Our blueberries are doing great. So we have those there. And you can see I got ground moles here. In the bottom of our raised beds, we have to put wire mesh. So that's why we have to build our beds so tall. We got to make sure that we have plenty of dirt for like beets and carrots and all that grows underground. We have to have a lot of dirt because we have to put wire mesh in the bottom of these beds to keep the moles from coming up. Now, the moles don't grow where the dogs are at, because that dog will dig to China to get a ground mole. So they all come out here to the garden. So again, know your pests and your critters and what you got to do. Here we have 3 blackberries bushes, 4 blackberry bushes, I'm sorry. And they have plenty on it, so we're going to have some blackberries this year. Planted these last year, so we will have blackberries this year, and 1 raspberry right here that we planted this year. So and it's got a couple on it. So here we have our berry bushes. Okay, what I want to talk about in my tip for this video is how water runs off and how much water is used in comparison between a raised bed and a traditional garden bed. So I've just got a wand right here, and you can see how the dirt's or how this raised bed soil is. So with this, every day I can just come around with this wand, and you can see the water pretty well stays right there by the plant. It's not running all over the place because this raised bed soil is loose. It's not compact and tight. So it allows the water to stay and put and run straight down towards the roots, which is the exact opposite of what happens, at least in my garden anyways. So that's just the food for thought. So let me finish watering this, and you can see I'm not using much water, of course, and I water every day because I don't want to over water. So not much water for this at all. So let's go to the traditional garden and see how the watering method is for that spot. Okay, so here I am at the traditional garden spot. And if you remember at the raised bed, that water would just soak right into the ground because that soil is looser. Even though we have hoed beside these pepper plants here, just watch how the water does. I mean, it still runs away from it just because it's not flat dirt. It stays better than it did when it was hard dirt because it's now soft because of the hose, but you got to constantly keep hoeing. You can see the weed pressure in between these rows right here and in the potatoes there, so we're fixing to hoe them and heal them. But still, to me, a raised bed uses half the water. Again, just my opinion, I haven't measured it, but just half the water that the traditional garden does. So when resources are short and it's dry weather, that means you got to use a lot more water in the traditional garden. So raised beds is going to be my method in the future in most of the crops that we plant. So you can see there we got all the girls with the hose digging out the weeds between the potatoes and getting ready to heal them up. All that being done by hand. So we planted this zucchini last week. You can see the deer print right there by the toe of my foot, so we got a deer walking across through here. But this zucchini is now a week old, planted by hand, and it's to the edge right there where the grass starts. So these are what we call our short rows. So that's zucchini. We skipped a row and then come over here and have squash up. You see one there. Get all that planted by hand up that row there. Here we have 6 rows of silver queen corn. It's not coming up as good in some of the rows as it is in others. So 6 rows of silver queen, and we put this spot in the middle right here so that way we could drive the truck down when we get ready to pick. You've got the silver queen on that side, and there's a drive path over there, so we can pick 3 rows at a time over there, drive truck down here and pick 3 rows at a time on this side. Then here we have peaches and cream corn, which is a bicolor corn. And again, drive right down that same row, pick these 3 rows, drive down this row over here to pick these 3 rows. And then here we have 6 rows of silver king. And these rows go all the way to that barn down there, so it's a couple 100 feet long. So that's going to be a lot of corn, but y'all have seen my family. We got a herd of people to feed. And then somewheres over here is one long row of cucumbers. Okay, here I have my Vont Milo kitchen scale, you know, and I just did a product review video on that last week. A brand new scale from Vont, from VontProducts.com, so go check them out. So Jackie did decide to pick some lettuce. So let me get all the lettuce up here. And it weighs 4.83 ounces. So I'm just going to call that 4 3/4 just to make my math easier when I get to add that up. I'm just going to give the benefit of the doubt. Say 4 3/4 for the lettuce. The 2 strawberries, a whopping 0.67 ounces. So we're just going to say a 1/2 ounce for the 2 whopping strawberries, and they're fixing to be eat. And let me stop here just a second and get a cup to put all these cherry tomatoes in. Okay, I have the cup, but I zeroed the scale back out, so the scale's not weighing the cup. And I hope this cup's big enough. As you can see, it's fixing to be salad eating time with these tomatoes and lettuce. And that's what I've really enjoyed about gardening. So thanks everyone for SHEDWARS for last year when I started watching, because even though my weight doesn't show it, we have Eat Healthier. So here is 5.33 ounces. So I'm just going to say 5 1/4 again to make my math easier. So 5 1/4 ounces of cherry tomatoes. So you just saw some weights for today, and that was today only, but we had been picking some all week long. So again, here's just a little spreadsheet that I use, and I know it's hard to read on the camera. But for this week, if my math is correct, and I am not a mathematician by no means, so anybody feel free to correct my math. I have no problem with that at all. But so for this week, it was 6 pounds 3 ounces total for this week. And I haven't added it up. I need to add it up, but somebody feel free to correct my math. So that's going to end this SHEDWARS video. And again, just a reminder of the tips. Think about what you're planting, how you're planting, because water is important. While water is an abundance at certain times in the summer, you know, our wells can start getting dry and sand starts caving in on it. So we have to really think about being diligent with our water usage. And I have learned, I'm convinced that raised beds do not use near the amount of water that the traditional garden does. Yes, raised beds are more expensive to build and get started, but once you're started with them, they are very little expense after that. So water saving is great with a raised bed. Weed pressure is much reduced with a raised bed. And also I threw in that joke about Jackie in the green pepper that was actually supposed to be a yellow pepper, but while I was joking about it, it's true. We need to remember what we planted and where we planted, so we harvest it at the right time and don't waste it. So that's the end of this SHEDWARS video, SHEDWARS21. Go team, will it grow? And I hope everybody that's watching, excuse me, is a subscriber. If you're not, you know, first give me that thumbs up and like the video. Or you can give it a thumbs down, but I prefer the thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. Ring that bell so you get notified of future videos. But until then, y'all take care and God bless.